Spread, and also a board member of SIBI. Rakesh Mishra, co-founder of Xcubator. Madam Rajshri Pati, chairman of Rajshri Group of Companies and also board member of CIBI. Aditya Devsood, chairman of Adyanta School and Startup Tunnel. Arjun Chowgle, executive director of the Chowgle Group from Goa. Ravi Krishnappa, member of charter member TiE Bangalore and investor of Indian Angels Network. I hand over to Sumit to begin the panel.
Thank you, Vish. This is a power-packed panel, and very diverse. So I'm not going to be standing in the way. I'll jump right into the topic. I'll just jump right into the topic. The topic is, when are we going to see a unicorn in the Indian education space? I'll just add a rider to the topic. Do we want to see a unicorn or do we want to see a bunch of many other creatures? And I'll start with Ravi Krishnappa, who kind of straddles the world of both venture capital as an angel investor and also education as founder of Science Adda.
Yeah, so first disqualification. I've stopped being an angel investor, more an entrepreneur. But I'm not too sure about the unicorn piece. So I'll keep it quick and then we can delve into the detail. I'm not too sure about the unicorn piece because aspirationally, unicorn has to do, in my mind, from what I've read, it has to do $1 billion in valuation, sales notwithstanding, right? So would you consider WhatsApp an unicorn in that particular sense? Today, I'm not too sure. The world consider WhatsApp as a unicorn, right? But we do talk about whether a Snapdeal or a Flipkart is a unicorn or not a unicorn. So from a celebrity perspective, what we do have the ability is to create 1 billion plus users who are active users on what we want to do because we have the choice to do that. Will we adopt that scale globally is a question that I think we need to think deeply because we seem to always think that we are special in some ways. And as human nature, we are not any different than anybody else. So long story short, I think we have the choice to have 1 billion votes plus in whatever we do, but it's up to us to take it to the world and not look at it as a reflection.
Okay, let me just frame it a little differently for Arjun in the sense that, going after unicorn status, at least in terms of valuation, is that the kind of goal that will really serve the purpose of the higher goal, if you like, of education rather than making money through business? Or do we want like $10, $100 million companies? So here I'm asking about, the business objective versus the goal of improving education in the country.
Well, in education, you have the capability to have a large impact and an impact at scale. And I think any type of venture that has impact at scale it has a lot of value. Now, whether you want to extract monetary benefits from that, I don't know. And probably considering the challenges that we face in countries like India, the developing world, and also the developed world, where there are a lot of inequalities also that is happening. A lot of the scale actually comes from the bottom of the pyramid and the middle classes also over there. So how much money can you actually extract from there? I don't know. But the point is that you do have the opportunity to extract scale over here. If you look at India, for example, we have 260 million children between the ages of 6 and 15 enrolled in school. The dropout rates in India have come down from something like 78% in 1961 to 30% in 2014. So that just shows that across all demographics, the value of education has improved. People are finding that there is value in sending the children to school. So if there are businesses that can cater to this, I think they will be very valuable.
Actually, what I'd suggest is that, all the panelists feel free to jump in with questions. I mean, just put your hand up, and because it then becomes more like a brainstorming session rather than a question answer session, because there are so many of us. So, I mean, the basic proposition I'm talking about here is that, VC funding follows a certain model, and it goes after a certain kinds of businesses, whereas the deeper problems of education in the country require solutions which go far beyond that. Where can there be a connect, and where is there a disconnect? Is VC's funding helping, or in some senses does it worry you that unicorns might emerge? So maybe Aditya, and feel free to jump in, everyone.
So, we've had a lot of opportunities to talk about these matters in the last couple of days, and I'm already on record with some of you saying that EdTech is a counter thesis for me. Why is that? It's because you might make some money somewhere, some model servicing some institution, but will you really impact learning outcomes? I think not. And even such enterprises as we've invested in that service the EdTech sector do not make a claim that they'll really transform learning outcomes. They support the processes of higher education, for instance, or other institutional needs that these organizations have. On a wider level, I'd like to say that there's a tremendous churn abroad in our country and many other regions of the world around what education is and how it works. What we see is that some of the forces allied against this change are parents and uncles and grandparents and older teachers, figures of authority that have traditional ideas about how education operates. So when you come to the marketplace with new offerings, you're actually fighting on two different fronts. One, you're trying to achieve new kinds of insights, transformation, transcendence. And on the other hand, you're trying to get kids married. Right? That's what higher education does in many, many regions of India. You get an MBA in order to command a different kind of price in the marriage market. And you guys know this in Coimbatore and Indore and other such educationally rich centers. So one thing, again, I would like to have discussed, but we can still turn to it, is education in terms of learning, education in terms of credentialing. And the real disruptions, I would like to say, are those that are going to be able to attack both simultaneously in some substantively new way. More later.
You want to add to that, Rajyasree?
Thanks, Aditya. I'd like to, speak about something that's I feel very strongly about. I think, unicorns can only be born in an environment that allows them to grow and to be endorsed. I've always said that, India has some of the largest IT companies in the world. You have your Infosys, you have your Wipros, you have your HCLs, they're all global companies. Why is it that we've never been able to produce a Steve Jobs, and we never will for a very long time? And ask yourself why. That's because fundamentally the education system here simply does not allow you free thinking. It doesn't allow you the a liberal mind. There's so many walls and barricades and expectations from society, from the policymakers on what education should be. And taking off from where we got our education, which is from the British, the imperial way of education, which continues in India until now, is to train people or educate people to serve, not educate people to be entrepreneurs. We've done very well in spite of this kind of an education. However, it is not adequate. I mean, why is it that most of the startups, you talk about Airbnb, you talk about Uber, why is it they're all in the United States of America? Why are they all in California? Maybe a little bit away, but still in the United States, because that environment respects out-of-the-box thinking, respects failure. There is money, there are funders, there are investors who are willing to invest in an idea. There is an infrastructure for this sort of thing that nurses and nurtures an idea. So therefore, unicorns can only be born in environments with free thinking.
Rakesh, I mean, you're an investor, so you probably, but you also
Incubator.
have Science Mitra or
SIDBI Startup Mitra.
Sidbi Startup Mitra. So, the views there are different from your, the excubator hat that you wear. How do you look at, funding edtech startups? I mean, do you look at higher goals or you just stay razor focused on the business goals?
So Sumit, I'll put a couple of things on the table when it comes to education startups, per se, right? The challenge that I see, there are two very big challenges that we see when we look at education startup. The first challenge is, as I think in the morning Mr. Gopal, he was pointing, education in its spirit supposed to be a free thing. And that's how I think things are going to happen in future, where the fundamental social force looking at education is still going to expect education, and I'm talking education as what we see as an education, not just trainings. That's to be free. The second issue in the education sector today with the edtech that we see today is the technologies, the methods, the newer things which are being done today in the market, they are far, far different, and the gap between the education style and the education content that exists in the country, the gap is very big. So the technologies which are coming in, what people are aspiring to break, that is far ahead, and what the base they are using in terms of the education content and education method and framework, which is lagging behind far. So probably it's going to be, in my assessment, is going to be another maybe decade when the whole education system and education style, and you will see a lot of alternative education forces which are starting to erupt now. Maybe it's going to take a decade. When the base of the education, the way what we call education, what we put forward to our children and to society, when that is ready to basically be hand in hand with the technologies coming in, I think that's where probably the whole unicorn thing in the mind will come in. Now, if you look at, I don't know if you notice, and we can see I think the startups that have pitched today, and my apologies to startups who are coming into saying this, but look at it, majority of them, the startups are coming on the fringe of the education. They are in the core of the education. They are into e-commerce, they are into selling stuff, they are into building various things which are not changing education. They are facilitating in some way, right? And why are they doing it? Because purely the force of being unicorn, the VC, the funding, all of this, that's a force which is forcing them to say, can I become profitable in 1 year? I want to change education. And I can tell you from my experience, I mentor startups who are into education, who start with a lot of aspiration. Within 2 to 3 years, they are on the ground reality. They know I can't sustain, I can't make money, I can't live on this, I can't do a social venture. So let me bring down my goal, ventures, aspiration. Let me sell something. What sells? And what sells in schools, what sells in all these colleges is not education. What sells is the fringe. And that's the challenge. When you look at unicorn, has to have very strong alignment to the value proposition, to the commercial side of it. And I don't think today in terms of as a education as a platform and commerce as a backbone in terms of being together, they are aligned. And that's the reason I don't think in a short term for us to create even a unicorn, that's going to be a possibility. That would be my submission on the table on this.
So Sonia is an expert on design, so I'm sure you have a perspective on what he's brought up, that the fundamental, what tech can deliver, the thinking about how it can deliver in terms of going mobile, in terms of personal connect, these are shifts in thinking. And I mean, do we see that? What will make us see that? How do you view it?
See, now that we have technology, it's very easy for anyone to be able to create something and scale it. You need imagination, less than money to actually make things happen. One of the issues with education is in this sector, there is a lot of effort versus gain. There's too much effort that needs to be put in. You need to connect, you need to collaborate, you need to bring in new technologies to be able to do something really, really different. Okay, so how many people are putting in that effort that is required to create something of value? So internationally, there are companies that have done that. You have Age of Learning, one startup, for instance, where parents are subscribed, and this is for 2 to 7-year-olds. Parents are subscribing directly because they're constantly making phenomenal curriculum. Then there are companies like Sphero who are teaching programming to kids through an object. Very sophisticated, very beautiful ideas that are being developed through a lot of effort. So when you put in a lot of effort, you get the gains, right? The other thing is, within our country itself, the immediate opportunity, and I wouldn't call it the problem. We keep talking about entrepreneurs going and finding problems. Actually, if you're an entrepreneur, you spot opportunities. So there are so many opportunities with education being a gated sector, and education itself wanting to give you new things. For instance, I was talking to a colleague and his daughter who's just graduating. 20 out of 20 kids in her class, 14 want to do design, and 2 want to go into engineering. Are we even prepared? Are we even prepared for these kids? There is additional tutoring that can be offered. There is, all of this can be given through technology. So there are opportunities there. And lastly, are we asking what if, why not? How can we just leap forward? That's what we've done very well. But somewhere we are getting too structured, too rigorous in what we're trying to do. We're not trying to leap forward in our imagination. Frankly, if I ask you, in the learning space, what is the most phenomenal thing that has happened in the last couple of years? Could you tell me one example? YouTube, right? So for my daughter, she knows how to, in her holidays, she's baking brownies. She's doing all kinds of things. She knows everything about horses because she's interested all through YouTube and Google. She just picks up the phone and she asks. She no longer has to ask me. So besides me and my husband, there's Google and YouTube in the house to answer all those questions. So those are fundamental shifts which can only come through imagination.
Very, very valid point. I think let's take for a minute and think through this, right? I think the fundamental problem that you're trying to address, and this is the point that I don't know for who those, we had a chat when Madan was making a point to say, look at a problem. Yeah. I'm saying a problem will get you only incremental results because we are looking at these as an incremental problem. As a country, we have 1 billion odd population. About 60% of them are studying something or the other at any given time, right? Roughly, even if you discount that and say that we have 400 million people trying to think of something, right? Broadly classified into 3 things. Either I'm learning something because I'm curious about what I want to do. I don't want to be taught. I want to learn at my speed and pace. Unfortunately, what I learn, nobody cares about because all they care about is a certificate issued where I get 78% or 96% or 88%, a number that is assigned by a third party. And all my training is to make sure I get a higher number. Right? So nobody questions or nobody bothers about the question I ask. I'm always tutored with the right answer. That is the root problem where we are afraid to fail. Right? So if you have to build that structure of how we want to fail, let's ask ourselves as parents, would we not compare our children when they come back and ask one question? If I want to change one thing in the nation today, I want to stop a parent from asking a child, how much did you score? Because that is the root cause of a structural piece that you're trying to build, right? So let's talk about learning that you would come as an outcome. The second thing is people are doing this because they want to apply this skill to get productive. We don't have efficiency, productivity, skills attainment as a goal in anything that we set. Our attainment of skill is only of 2 kinds. Sorry if I'm offending somebody, but we are only working. So I was talking to a person out of IIT, and I don't want to name a very senior person. I said, there's a problem that the IIT structure today is led by 2 things. The discussion is on 2 types of quotas, QUOTA and KOTA. That's the structure that you have got, where I prime a set of people to pass out of quota and then get into IIT. And that becomes the epitome of what I think is education. So the second piece is, if you have to structurally break this, you have to go back and say that it has to be something like where I would be able to choose what I want to do and still make a living out of it and have a respectable life, right? The dignity of labor, the ability for somebody to go and work together and stand up and say, I know this subject. Those 3 things, if you can bring in, then you have a chance of making it a unicorn.
Okay, I just have one more question, which is, we've spoken about the deeper aspects of education and some disconnects with EdTech. We have entrepreneurs, EdTech entrepreneurs sitting here. What is the advice that you have for them to, what kind of businesses should they pursue? How do they find a balance between these issues that we are talking about?
So I'm just going to kick things off, right? This is not a comprehensive comment, but over the last 3 years, through this Adhyanta Fellowship and then through Startup Tunnel, we've been interacting with a lot of young people. And as a result, we have some purchase that we didn't have earlier around how young people discover things, learn things, make connections, build relationships. And then we met a young guy who is himself observing these phenomena. And he had, on first inspection for me, a crazy idea. I thought it made no sense as far as my lifestyle, and it didn't make any sense. But he said, look, everybody I know is exploring courses online and experiencing educational videos online. And in fact, I think this is something that people would want to share with each other. So I'm building a sharing platform where I accumulate educational or learning experiences, skill building experiences that are relevant to me so that I can share them within my peer group more widely. Now, we had a number of conversations. I don't know whether he's grown out of this idea, whether he's still doing it or whatever. But this represents some kernel of insight that he is beginning with thinking around a new kind of self-instructional and peer instructional or sharing of self-instructional behavior, which is as yet only lightly attested or newly attested in the world, and then trying to see how that can be supported and what kind of platform needs to be created.
Anybody else has a...
So I spoke to at least 3 to 4 startups who are into edutech space for a decade, who had tried. And one question I asked them, saying, if you were to sum up your learning and trying to make a business in this area, how would you do that, right? So they told me there are 3 realities you should understand in this business. One, no child is interested in learning. Let me say the learning the way we say today, not really core learning. Education as a study, right? No child is interested in spending time in education. You would go to school, no teacher is interested in spending more time in that, right? If you go and tell a teacher, you got to spend now 15 more minutes to fill up this data and put up this beautiful information, and then the graph will come and suddenly your kids are going to be all artificially intelligent because now I know more about them. No teacher is interested in spending more time. They have to finish up their schedule by 4 o'clock, they have to catch bus or their bike, and they have to go home. And the third reality, which you spoke about, that education fundamentally will become a free thing, right? Now, if these 3 things you keep in mind when you're creating a new startup, I think first thing that you, in my mind, they should do, get out this whole unicorn or this whole VC, and that if you want to be in education, at least for next 10 years, do not get into that race. So I think in the morning, in some of the keynote speeches we heard, get in only if you have a passion in this. You believe in it. You want to change. It will take time. Nothing will happen in a month, year, 2 year, 3 year. Nothing will happen. You got to stay to it. And hence, I think one of the points that you mentioned, doing well while doing good. So that's where you look at it. So when you are building, you may not be turning out to be a 100 crore business. That's absolutely okay. Absolutely okay. Can you build 5 crore business, good profit margins where you can survive, don't have to take a begging bowl and stand in front of somebody that I have to survive for next 2 years, give me money. That's absolutely fine. Build a good business which is able to create impact. You can go slow, that's absolutely fine. Over a period of time, there are a lot of changes going to happen in this country where you will have opportunity if you build a good base and you learned about the education ecosystem. You will have to get a good play in future. It may not happen immediately.
VC model won't support that, right?
No, today I do not really see, I'll tell you, look at all unicorns which are being created. One fundamental thing where I see, there is an ecosystem to take businesses to all the stakeholders, right? So today, all the friends who I know, my batchmates who are running educational startups, struggling. They make money. But you know what's their number one challenge is? The guy has to create the product, he has to sell it, he has to support it. There is no ecosystem available for him today, ready-made ecosystem, where he can reach out to these schools, get the entire support provided, because that's how these are all isolated things. You might have 1,000 schools in India, but they're all disconnected. There is no platform today where you are able to connect to all these schools to make your sales. So the basic ecosystem that is required to make your e-commerce or your commerce to work to unicorn level, that does not exist in education sector. So every entrepreneur which is into the education sector is of his own. So you can survive only as much what you can do yourself. So some of them may be lucky, and we have seen, I think in the last 1 decade, the funding that came into education sector, some of them multi-million-dollar funding, but they did not succeed, didn't go anywhere. So pretty much I think with that aspiration that you want to be a billion-dollar company or whatever, I think a lot more frustration is going to come in. But if you know that my goal is to create a good company, I want to create a good organization, I want to create a good business, the chances that you will succeed in a longer term are far more than if you run the race in terms of become a VC funded and unicorn business in that.
You know, while we talk about education has to be free, that's true not just of education, that's a thought even for the medical sector. Right? And let's take a leap out of the healthcare sector. For some reason, we don't seem to apply the same policies and rule when it comes to education when we compare the medical sector. I'll give you an example, right? What is very accepted in the healthcare sector is what I call as the offset model. That means you go check yourself into a hotel, into a hospital, based on the grade of what room you select. If it's an AC room and you can afford it, you get charged. All other charges are related to an affordability that is indexed based on the kind of room that you select. And that difference of payment, that's the premium that you collect, is essentially allowing that particular hospital to overall maintain an efficiency and pay that off in some ways as I'll call it the social dividend, right? They have the ability to take that out and pay it out as a social dividend. This is a very accepted model, right? All of us know this, right? I'm sure you understand. For those who don't understand what's an offset model, I can do a long lecture. But for whatever reason, you don't see that as happening in the education sector, right?
I'm very happy that you brought in. And if you look at now what you brought in as an example, precisely that AC room is not the core medical. That's a fringe. It's a fringe, first thing. If you look at education sector, in Kota, you talked about, right? You'll be surprised to know one of the businesses which is the most flourishing businesses is the hostels and food. Because of so many students who are migrating from other states and coming in, guys figured out that they have been struggling for years. Every time they come in, they don't get to stay. So more than what the coaching center makes, you'll find all these hostels which are making that, right? But you know what? That's a fringe. That's nothing. It's not helping in medical thing that your AC rooms. So I think same thing is going to happen in education.
Let's open it up to questions from audience. Anybody? Oh, sure, please.
I'm just curious, how much of the, the tutoring courses for your entrance examinations and so on, at least in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, I know it happens in isolation and privately. I'm not sure how much of tech goes into all this, and this is an enormous opportunity. So I'm not quite sure, how much that has been tapped.
So the two biggest, and I'm giving it based on the last 10 years that I've spent in the education piece. The two biggest areas that are today flourishing is essentially assessments and tutoring in some shape and form, right? And all the VC funding that you see, whether it's old Tutor Vista model that went in, whether it's the new one out of Bangalore, you will see Vedantu, you will see a few of this. All those is associated with how will I make you get into a premier school or a premium college at a particular structure,
And
right?
that's the same case in China, right?
Yeah, so go back and ask, has that been there? Ever since I was a kid, I was told that if you can't afford brilliance and you didn't take brilliance tutorial in those days, there's no way you would make an IIT. And for me, that's not even an aspirational piece. So it didn't matter. So the sector has always persisted, right? But for a country of our size, to your point, and how do we fundamentally change it? The problem is that we can't change it by keeping our metric the same. And I'll give you an example. Delhi University has X number of people who come into science part as part of BSc. That means your 12th pass and you have to go to Delhi University. DU University, BSc Science is a very highly rated piece, sought after, after the engineering piece. Last year, and there are 160 odd common entrance seats which are general quota, right? Not the other one. Any guess on what was the cutoff percentage last year for DU, science? 100%, absolutely. In a country where we have 600 million people studying, our premier institution says anything that you do 1 mark less, either because my handwriting is not understood, either because something has happened, you have lost the structure. That privilege is what you are paying for. You're not paying for education, mind you, you're paying for essentially the privilege to be recognized as the top 100% to get in. That is a piece that, why are we, some of us are so passionate about this is, if we don't change that, we in India are facing a social backlash. And the social backlash will be far bigger, far wider than what we have seen as a poverty or a quota structure. Because that is going to separate the haves and the have-nots. Right? What digital divide are you talking about when I don't know what my future is? Because I've not got X percentage class in 7th standard, right? That's the digital divide you're going to create. You're going to create an educational divide that is so massive that you wouldn't know what to do.
Audience questions? Anybody?
So, can I provoke you guys? Because you are all very comfortable. No, you are not. No. Okay, VC and all, keep it off the lid for the few minutes. Think of a structure, demolish the existing structure. He had, let's say, I'll discount the third point, I'll take two points from you. Teachers are not interested in teaching, children are not interested in learning. Okay? Teachers are not respected. The structure is crumbling. Okay? Take this as the base. You guys are worth at least 10,000 crores here. I'll take Gopal into the scene. So, okay, there's a lot of money. Put 100 crores in. Forget the VC model for the next 2 years. Show this world that we can build an alternate structure, which is based on a kind of love where the child likes to learn, a kind of respect the teacher gets, deserves, what we call the Finnish kind of stuff. Create a more a system based on relationship, what we guys call a post-buying behavior of there. Put 100 crores in this business, show that we can have an alternate structure that can work. Let it be in Coimbatore. Okay? Put the money where the mouth is. And let us show this bloody world that we can create a system. See, what has happened is, all the Kumaragurus around here, all the Mahalingams around here have bought the structure. I'm asking you to demolish the structure. Work another structure which can make a difference here. See, I agree, you're saying there's going to be a social renaissance here. It's around the corner. Assume that it is around the corner. Come on, man. This is a time for us not to talk. It's time to act. Create a system. Jiddu Krishnamurti tried to talk about it. No, it's time we make this happen. And I agree. I mean, the TVS family has put in a lot of effort the last 40 years. They put a lot of effort. Now, it's time to renew that. Put 100 crores into a structure which probably goes to the rural India, uses the YouTube, whatever it is. But demolish the current stupid structure that we are sitting on. It is not worth the weight that it is sitting on.
So, I want to make a partial response. Of course, you'll have to make your own. So, it seems to me that the guys who are going to really be able to work it through are 24-year-olds who will have to spend some time, in the desert till they achieve certain insights and struggle and arrive at a new kind of proposition, which allows some of the new media possibilities to be incorporated into their kind of, educational, pedagogic kind of thesis or vision. There's too many different forces, I feel, that are carrying us along, like a wave, which we're all struggling to kind of process and internalize. I mean, one among them is the liberalization of education in the first place, which has created superabundance of higher education, which means in some ways that I really wonder whether I can agree with you entirely that there is that scarcity. There is that scarcity in premium environments.
I'm talking only about K-12, right? So that's all state subject. Up to 12 standard, up to 10 standard in across the country, the primary first to 10 is a state subject. It's not central.
Okay, but in K to 12, there is near monopoly, and you have 95% of the kids actually in there studying rubbish, which they weren't doing 10 years ago. They weren't even inside the classrooms. So our revolution in the last 10 years has been get the kids into the classroom. Our challenge now is to make sure that something good is happening inside those classrooms. So anyway, too wide a debate if we're going to talk about K-12 as well as higher education and so forth. But just to say that there is in certain cases oversupply, so that scarcity reflex is actually misguided, and in certain cases there's a superabundance, and schools are shutting down all along highways of India, whether you're traveling to Jaipur or Chandigarh. I'm sure intercity in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, there are higher education institutions that have no takers anymore. So this is a strange phenomenon for us, that there is a lot out there. The one offer I wanted to make was that, we are doing something in partnership with USAID called the Read Alliance, which is focused on early grade reading for children under the age of 6. Just simply trying to understand what are the innovative pedagogies and thought leadership out there where people have tried new things to get, Adivasi communities and Dalit communities and marginal communities of different kinds, first generation literates, to be inclusive while also using technology, including mobile media, including same language subtitling and other techniques. Now, these are all grant funded. There is no expectation of scalar return on investment. So to that extent, this invitation or this challenge is right, that a lot of different experiments need to be funded so that we can discover some of those visionaries who are going to actually have a chance.
Yeah, so, Kannan, I think absolutely it's something that all of us have to go back and work through. There is, I don't want to paint a very bleak picture. So let me talk about two things that I think are changing, right? It's not true, in some ways it's not true. I disagree that all children don't want to learn. Because I go to schools and I do two things, right? I go and talk about literacy to government rural primary schools. This is up to 5th standard. And I do 1,800 schools at scale. So Sikshana is what I do as a trustee. It's a very different problem. They would love to do this, but their reason for doing is again aspirational. They want to be able to communicate. They want to have the respect in that particular sense. As you get outside of that piece, right, then you talk about why do I need to go and figure a particular language? Why do, outside of the language and the basic maths and the science pieces that we talked about, we have to come up with a paradigm where I enhance your learning. And what we are doing for that, and I'm happy to take anybody who can come in and help towards that, is we want to create something called a curiosity quotient. The reason is there is an IQ. I know I can measure it with an aptitude. There is an EQ. I know I can sense what is an emotional quotient. We as a nation can create this, which is a curiosity quotient, because a learning individual today has an opportunity to go and learn by using YouTube, by using Wiki. So content is abundant, right? But I should know where to go and look for and what is that innate inquiry process that I have to build. So if anybody can help in creating the curiosity quotient, I'd love to work with that.
I just wanted to respond to what you said. I don't think it's money alone that's going to make a difference. I'll tell you about a little experiment or something we've been working on, and a lot of depth work has been done here. With an educator, we've actually introduced in the PU curriculum, which you can't change, what we've tried to do and done successfully is introduce design thinking into physics, chemistry, maths, bio. And the feedback from parents is, when it comes to PU, I'm sending my child to a Marx factory. Okay, I just want them to cram, I want them to remember, and I want them to pass. So overall, I think that we need to all work together to create a mindset shift. So even like Aditya was mentioning earlier, should startups just be making boxes, or do we need to put in far more thought into how can we change learning? So it's not going to be money alone, it's a fundamental mindset shift that has to go from source, which is, when you're sending kids to school and actually killing their creativity and their imagination, to at the higher levels when we expect them to only aspire for the IITs. Overall, a mindset shift is required, and of course, energy is required from all the young people in this room and across, and the funds are required, but it has to all work together, and I don't think it'll happen overnight, but that's like a goal to work towards.
It's quite a large subject to really deal with in a limited time. So I'll wind up now. I hope you've at least, got a trigger to think about the space that you're in a different way. And best of luck to Coimbatore. Thank you.